I'd like to start off with a small love story about my mother and my father. When my father had moved to Sweden, to Lund, he studied with the former president of Zambia, President Hage Geingob, Rupia Banda, and they were trying to find a way of getting my mother out of the country without alerting the Secret Service of South Africa. So my father talked and deliberated with President Banda, and President Banda then asked him to show him a photograph of Yolisa. He showed him and he said, "Billy, but this is simple. I've got the perfect idea. Why don't you let me marry your wife to be, and then when she comes out of Zambia, I divorce her, and then you can marry her." Assalamu alaikum, alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Ambassador Billy Modise, affectionately known as Uncle Billy or Bra Billy, was born on 18th December 1930 in Bloemfontein, in the then Orange Free State, Gautengwe George and Khobonweng Lizzie Modise. His brothers were Lebogang Edwin, Ubuditse Joseph, and Lipile George, and his loving sister Dorothy Mohapi. The apartheid system constrained opportunities for black people, and Modise's initial ambition was to become a delivery boy, following in the footsteps of one of his uncles who delivered mail on a bicycle. He received an Anglican scholarship which enabled him to enroll for his high school in Moederpoort, where he matriculated. Between 1950 and 1954, he worked at a wholesale store and for a medical doctor in order to raise money for his university studies. In January 1955, he enrolled at the University of Fort Hare to study for a Bachelor of Arts degree. As a student at the UFH, he came into contact with Professor Z.K. Matthews and Govan Mbeki, who inspired him to become politically active. This period marked his introduction to formal politics, which shaped his commitment and lifelong dedication to the struggle against apartheid. He joined the African National Congress in 1955 and was soon elected secretary of the ANC Youth League UFH branch. He also served as secretary of the Student Representative Council. He later became an executive member of the National Union of South African Students. Whilst at UFH, Modise met Dr. Rosemary Bokwe, and there began the love story. A physician and gynecologist whose father was a composer, John Knox Bokwe. Dr. Bokwe had 3 children, Yolisa, who Modise married, Boy, and Nomsa. In January 1960, he was asked by NUSAS to attend a conference in Switzerland. He declined, fearing that applying for a passport would result in his arrest, given his active involvement in politics. The Lund University students in Sweden offered him a scholarship to study medicine, and the British Students' Union paid for his ticket from Accra, Ghana, to London. The ANC arranged that he would be on their only chartered flight to lift South African ANC refugees from the then Botswana land, now Botswana, to Accra. When he got to Botswana land, his contact was gone and he missed that lift. He therefore hitchhiked to Tanzania and later got on a plane to London. In Tanzania, this is where he met his first Swedish encounter, a missionary, Barbro Johansson, who facilitated travel from Tanzania. Modise played a critical role in laying a strong foundation in Sweden that paved the way for future relations between the ANC and Sweden. As a result of his tireless efforts, Sweden became a very central part of the struggle against apartheid. Upon his arrival in Sweden, Modise began mobilizing student formations against apartheid and networking on behalf of the ANC. The strategy was to isolate and boycott all South African products. What gave hope to the ANC that they could achieve their objectives was a distinctly strong egalitarian credo that Sweden and other Nordic countries had given that they had never been colonial powers and hence had not created the seemingly insoluble problem of the colonial master always remaining the colonial master. Whilst in Sweden, he met and lobbied Olof Palme, the then Prime Minister, at a function. The Prime Minister advised that the ANC strategy should in fact be to request the Swedish people to pressure the parliamentarians to support the struggle of the people of South Africa against apartheid. During one of his visits to Lund, former Prime Minister Tage Erlander explained to Modise and his fellow revolutionaries that according to Swedish law and practice, economic sanctions could not be declared against a country that Sweden was not at war with. Sweden was not at war with South Africa in the legal sense, so they could not apply sanctions. He, however, went on to explain that if the ANC was able to persuade the ordinary Swedish consumer not to buy South African products, there was no problem. This posed a major challenge to Modise and his comrades, as it effectively meant talking to every Swede to say, don't buy South African products. Don't export to South Africa, as they could not stop goods from entering Sweden. Undeterred, Modise addressed student structures as this was his base. He traveled to Gothenburg, Stockholm, Lund, talking to high schools all over Skåne, informing them about the situation in South Africa. Modise was a founding member of the South African Committee in Lund alongside Lars-Erik Johansson, Ulf Agrell. The committee convened meetings, printed posters, pamphlets, lobbied parliamentarians to support the struggle against apartheid. He also mobilized students from other political movements in Africa, and his tasks were extended to cover liberation movements from across Southern Africa. His work also covered other Nordic countries, and while in Norway, he attended the 1961 Nobel Peace Prize ceremony for the late Chief Albert Luthuli. Brabili and Jolisa were married on 23rd March 1964. Friends and comrades donated money to celebrate the occasion. Shaga Lalu, who passed on recently, prepared an outstanding wedding feast. They were blessed with a daughter, Buntle, and a son, Tsepo, both who have sadly passed on. In 1966, the ANC Youth and Student Section was formed, with Thabo Mbeki as its leader in Britain. The ANC YSS had two main objectives: looking after the welfare of the ANC youth and mobilizing youth against apartheid internationally. Modise was one of the ANC YSS leaders alongside others, including Joan Dlantla, who later played critical roles in the country's transition to democracy. In 1975, Modise was sent to New York in the United States to work for Habitat, the United Nations Conference on Human Settlements. His role was preparing policy papers on issues of resettlement. Between 1976 and 1988, Modise was Assistant Director of the UN Institute of Namibia in Lusaka, Zambia, working under the current Namibian President, Hage Geingob. The institute provided training in political science, sociology, and education. In 1988, he left the UN to work full-time for the ANC under the leadership of Comrade Oliver Reginald Tambo. He was subsequently deployed to Sweden, where he served as the ANC's chief representative. Modise returned to South Africa in 1990 and was deployed at Shell House, the former ANC head office in South Africa. He was tasked with heading the Matla Trust, which was established to prepare for the first democratic elections in 1994. After the elections, Modise was posted abroad as South Africa's High Commissioner to Canada in 1995. He also served as the Chief of State Protocol under former President Mbeki from 1999 to 2006. He retired from the administration in 2006, but continued to be actively involved in politics. Modise was an integral part of the 101 stalwarts and veterans who were signatories to the document for the sake of our country, who came together due to their serious concerns about the trajectory that the ANC had taken. He passionately believed that the practices of those who were in power had deviated from the historical mission and the revolutionary task of the ANC. In addition to his firm commitment to politics, Modise had a number of other passions, including ballroom dancing. He participated in numerous competitions which covered the various forms of dance, such as the foxtrot, the cha-cha-cha, the tango, samba. Together with Rupiah Banda, former president of Zambia, he also formed a popular band called Billy and Banda. In 2008, Modise received the Order of Luthuli, silver class from then President Mbeki, for excellent contribution in the achievement of South Africa, free of racial oppression, and contribution to the building of a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic South Africa. He also received the Premier's Excellence Award from the Premier of the Free State for his contribution towards the liberation struggle in South Africa in general. In 2017, he was bestowed the Swedish Order of the Polar Star by the Swedish ambassador to South Africa on behalf of His Royal Majesty King Carl Gustaf. Modise was a trustee of the African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes. He also served as a board member of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Program Director, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Dr. Ayanda Zaluba, President, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, former President Thabo Mbeki, Mrs. Zanele Mbeki, former President Kgalema Motlanthe and Mrs. Gugu Mtlanthe, former First Lady Mama Graça Michel, ministers, members of parliament, mayors, premier, Vice President of Namibia, Your Excellency Nangulo Mbumba, ambassadors and high commissioners, the religious clergy, the ANC stalwarts and veterans, family, comrades, and friends. Ambassador Modise passed in Gauteng on 20th of June 2018. He is survived by his wife, daughter Thandi, grandson Khositsile, sister Dorothy, and numerous nephews and nieces. Robala ka khotso motho e ka gama e sileng letsholo mongwatu o montsho o phelo e tsuwe. Thank you.